we hear about these people when they first come in, and we know right away, wow, that's different, that's new, that's very fun. And so the fact that Brady couldn't even get to a threshold for us to all have that feeling deep down in our stomachs about, what the future might hold, it does kind of worry me. And I was pretty bummed out because I had pretty high hopes. I thought the interviews he's been giving and just letting loose a little bit more on the herd and wherever else, the Fanatics conversation with Stephen A. Smith that we talked about a little while ago, maybe in our first episode. I think this does spell a little bit of trouble here, that maybe the ceiling of what Brady could be, we might have to ratchet that down a little bit. It might not be the vaulted ceilings. It might be a normal, everyday person's kind of home, 10 feet or something. I think that's where we are. I think this does spell a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, to your point about Greg Olsen, like I knew he had it when he was calling XFL games. Like you could just tell he viewed the game in a manner that was different than the other analysts who are up there. I will defend him on this, and I'll push back. One, I think it's like the hardest job in sports media of these football roles we're going to talk about, from being a guest analyst like Bill Belichick or being a studio analyst like Jason Kelsey. Like, I think being in the booth and calling a live game where you can only prepare so much for what's going to happen, I think that's a tough job. And I think that, having said all that, like, this is the position he's in. There's no kid gloves. He's the number one analyst for Fox, and he's going to have to adjust quickly. The other thing is, Tom Brady's not in the booth because of his personality. Tom Brady's in the booth because of his resume and because of his star power. And I think there's almost some push and pull with that, where it's a little distracting to have Tom Brady in the booth. Like, you're hanging on to every word. You're hearing this voice that you've been listening to in a different context for more than 20 years now. I don't know, just as somebody, maybe it's because I was tuned into the game to not only watch it, but to pay attention to what he was saying. But I found there something to be distracting about Tom Brady being in the booth. And the other thing I would say is, this goes to head coaching too. Like, there's something about the idea that the best analysts and the best head coaches aren't typically former star players. Now, obviously there are exceptions, but by and large, like, the best head coaches in basketball are backup point guards or role players. And the best head coaches in football are backup quarterbacks or guys who were, gritty special teamers or whatever. Like, and that's because you take Barry Bonds and you make him a hitting coach. Barry Bonds can't necessarily articulate what makes a great hitter. Barry Bonds just knows how to, right. Just go be Barry Bonds. Just, yeah. It's Shaq's analysis. Go be Shaq. Like, and Tom Brady, like, Tony Romo doesn't have the same resume as Tom Brady, but I think he's kind of the exception, at least early on. And he's a great
example of exactly what I was talking about too. We knew it immediately, right?
Exactly. And so I think that, like, Tom Brady, I just didn't get that sense that he's going to be able to articulate the game through his prism, because his prism is so clouded by being the greatest of all time. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that evolves, if it does evolve moving forward.